Hi, everyone. It's Miss Celeste here, and I'm really excited to be a part of your journey here in ECE 102. This course is all about curriculum development and kind of diving into different ways each classroom kind of represents each curriculum and in correlation with their method and teaching styles and so forth. So, this week one, part one, is really just going to explain what curriculum is. And we're going to definitely talk more about it this week. So, each week, just so you know, you're going to have 4 videos uh, to view, and I encourage you to take some notes or anything that you can share in our live sessions that we're going to have once a week. And that's a time where I'm going to elaborate a little bit into these areas that I'm discussing per week. And then also, I'd love your input or reflection on certain topics, which would be really meaningful for everyone to hear. So maybe just keep that in mind while you're watching these videos and collecting your notes and just so we can have a collaborative conversation during our live sessions. All right. So this is week one, part one of our course. But before we get started, I'd just like to give a little glance at what this week's all about in pertaining to assignments and readings and videos and so forth. So this week you do have some reading um, and some videos to watch, as I mentioned. So it's really important that you spend some time reflecting on the reading and videos because that will support you in your assignments and discussions and journal reflections. So, first, I'm going to start with introduction. So, every time I teach a course, I really enjoy the part of the introduction. The reason for that is just so we can get to know you, just in a more detailed sense of who you are, your hobbies, why you enjoy ECE, and also just kind of diving into your current curriculum approach in your classroom, or if you're not in a classroom just yet, just maybe elaborate more of what would be your curriculum of choice and why. And you are going to do it through Powtoon, which is a video um, version, just kind of what I'm doing now through this video where I'm talking and presenting. And that's what you're going to create, which is a video introduction. And then you're going to share that on our introduction discussion page. And then each of your peers are going to review it and write some comments and just, keep that conversation going. But this is just something we do in week one. So you will not have to be creating videos each week, but yet this powerful video is something you also could use in the future. Moving to discussion thread. So that is something we are going to do weekly. And the discussion thread is really a time where we're collaborating, conversating with each other. So it's very important that you spend some time reflecting on the discussion thread and also what your peers have spent some time writing. And so you're going to have some meaningful replies to at least minimum 2 peers, which is due by Saturday. Your initial discussion is due by Wednesday each week. So those never change. So please just be mindful to do your replies on different days. So for an example, you wouldn't reply to a peer, 2 different peers on the same day would need to be on a different day. And the reason for that is just to keep that conversation going and us actively participating in the process. So, in order to do that, we have to revisit discussions, every day, every other day, just to make sure that we are being involved in the process. And another note I do want to mention is in your discussions, you also will have peers ask you questions or just kind of want some more insight maybe on a topic. So just really remember to read those replies and elaborate there, and respond to them, because again, it's important that we are conversating. And this being an online course, the discussion thread and the live sessions are really important for us to come together and share ideas and just be actively involved in those moments. Next, we'll have a journal that is due Saturday. And again, every week is different in topics. This journal, just to name a few questions, I'm going to have a reflect on who influenced you. How do you apply, DAPs in the classroom? And just a little bit more detail about your curriculum approach, what you use. If there's anything you can change, what would that be? So just this is just me and you conversating on the journal. So this is not a collaborative kind of conversation. This is just between you and I. So please share. Give me some insight of your world of classroom, and because I really would love to learn and kind of know more about you on that aspect. And also ask questions is another time to elaborate into some details, and I definitely would enjoy giving you some feedback or suggestions or strategies, and that's what I'm here to do to support you. And then lastly would be the assignment. So that is due Sunday. And all of these assignments are due in week one. And each week, assignments can differ depending on what the topics are. So, for an example, this week we're going to focus on just writing a 3-page essay, and just kind of diving into DAPs and just really expressing your perspective, how you use it, changes you want to make in your classroom. And it's really just kind of up to you how you want to format it. It does need to be APA written style wise in essay format. So, again, if you need some clarity of what that is in more detail, please reach out. I will go over that section just to be clear of what the expectation is. But again, you can find a lot of the information in your Canvas under Module 1 and Assignment 1 in week 1. So again, all more explanations of what these assignments are all about is in Canvas. So please spend some time reviewing and setting up your week accordingly so you can be very prepared to collaborate, conversate with your peers, have lengthy time to write your reflections and journals. And one other thing I want to mention is after our live sessions, you're more than welcome to do a reflection. It is extra credit, it's not mandatory, but I would encourage you to spend some time doing those reflections just to get a few points that possibly could be of help at some other point in the course. And then one other thing is making sure that we are mindful of the 45 hours that is required for this course. So every week I will have you submit some of your hours so we can just make sure that we are managing our time in great form. And I'm really just trying to support that process of accomplishing that 45 hours by the end of this course. So that is hands on training that you're going to do in your environment that you're in. If you are not in a classroom just yet, I encourage you to start seeking out some environments you could be a part of, so you can start exercising your skills and mastering your teaching styles and approach. And that's really what the purpose of this 45 hours is all about. All right, so let's get into curriculum. So, just to be mindful that all schools have a different approach to learning and curriculum overall. So, there isn't a one size fits all, there is not one curriculum that everybody follows. And The purpose of understanding curriculum is that they're all different, but yet some have many similarities in areas that they focus on. So, the goal of this course is to provide a well driven and meaningful curriculum to help children grow and develop through their individual skills. So, it's very important that when you are teaching from a curriculum, it really empowers the child's growth. You're supporting their development, but then also just being mindful of their individual needs as they grow, because they all are different in terms of when they're going to master certain areas of development, and they're not going to all do it at the same time, and that is okay. So when you come from a diverse, flexible, open perspective, it's important to definitely teach in that way, so you can allow children to work at their pace and master their skills as they come. Education as a whole has and still is growing. So I don't think we know the magic ways of doing things, nor do I think we ever will, to be honest. I feel like as we get new children into our classroom and our environment, we are always learning something new, always doing things a bit different. May approach them very, all individually and all very different. And that's really the magic of what you do and how you do it. And not everybody has that capability. So I think it's really important to value that part as a teacher, any teacher for that matter, is that you have that skill to really be flexible and really think quickly, right? And how you're going to approach, this child and how you're going to get them uh, to be successful in their development. And that is such a magical uh, tool to have. And I sincerely applaud you, all you teachers, for just really spending time trying to master and fine tune those skills. And that's really why you're here and what we're doing today. So thank you. And then next would be the content on school teaching skills and not fostering individual potential is hard to hear. And that's something that I want to highlight, because every environment's different, every school's different, every school's approach is different. But unfortunately, not everybody really focuses on fostering the individual potential, but yet sees them as a big, large group. And what I want to encourage is for you to really see them as individual people, and let the child blossom and grow and just really master skills at their pace. And you will hear me say that a lot, just because I am a big, big advocate for individual approach to, teaching children in the classroom. And don't get me wrong, there are moments that you can do group, uh, presentations and introduce things. It doesn't always have to be individual, but I guess my point is really spending time with those children who need that individual approach more so than other children that may be okay in a large group, and that's okay too. So just being flexible of moving about your classroom and just working with children in a way that best supports them individually, and that's really my point. um, and then lastly is, how can teachers continue to be a voice for children in schools who don't support individual approaches? um, I really think that, using your voice and really just really having conversations with your administration, principals, directors, leadership, board of directors, and just kind of bringing this conversation to light is a big way of how your voice can be heard. I definitely would collect much information of why it's beneficial. And so when you do have these conversations, they're rich with knowledge, information, and you really get your point across, and why this is something that is needed. Um, and my other question is, how have your own experiences helped you learn more about children and how they learn best? For me, I just really find that. Uh, thankfully, I've been in many environments that have allowed me to teach children individually and how they learn best. So I really had the great experience of kind of leading in that way. And I've always been taught to kind of lead in that way. I have, spent some time in other environments shortly of not being necessarily allowed to kind of, help children individually, but yet more as a group, or just a lot of interactions among a group, which I'm not saying groups aren't great. Just for the collaboration aspect and everything. But again, not every child does best in those settings. And as in my experiences growing up in education, I've just seen a lot of children maybe get left behind just because I guess necessarily they're not noticed as much because they are not part of the group as maybe others are. And that's one thing that together we can support all children in making sure that we provide an environment that supports um, their needs and how they learn best. So having the flexibility, like I mentioned, to dive into group or individual or just individual for that child, and just kind of having that approach where will ease the anxiety and really just have children have a more love for learning, because they're not so stressed that they have to perform in uncomfortable situations. And I just really want to focus more on the learning and them individually than trying to get them to be in a group where they necessarily are uncomfortable being in. Why we use curriculum. So, programs are more likely to use a curriculum if they are required to do so, or because they want to ensure that everyone is on the same page and working towards the same goals. So, generally, curriculum is for these reasons. So, we really want to make sure we have a focal point, we have a purpose, we all are on the same page in terms of developmental aspects, and making sure that we are meeting the child's needs developmentally. So that's really, what the curriculum is there as a guide to kind of make sure that we are all staying on track. Many use curriculum as a guide, in classrooms. Again, everybody's different in how they apply that in the classroom. But then, in some sense, some environments do kind of have you follow a certain procedure, or that they want you to follow. What I really enjoy is the creativity of the flexibility when applying curriculum, because again, depending on the age of the children, where they are, in their development, it all can kind of be approached in a different way, but still kind of meet the curriculum standard per se, and still all be okay and work well. Some use curriculum based on their school philosophy. So again, a lot of the schools really focus their curriculum on their philosophy. So, for an example, Montessori has her own um, curriculum base that she follows. And what I really notice in, say, a Montessori classroom, their focal points are the different areas of the classroom, and then elaborating in those areas, such as, say, practical life, sensorial, math, language. Um, but as you can hear me say those areas, you may think like, oh, I have a math, I have a language. Don't call it sensorial, but we do have somewhat of an area with colors and shapes and um, different dimensions and sizes. And then we have a practical life, which is more sensory. So again, just different terms, but same meaning. Now that I think we all have more similarities than not. Areas to focus on. I just kind of did a general sense, especially in early education, of what we should recognize, and really understand the importance of the early experiences in building a firm foundation for learning and development. Um, so these areas, we should definitely have daily life skills, meaning exercising their gross and fine motor skills, sensorial skills, Definitely have a creativity part of the day. So a lot of role playing, art, building, construction, music, and movement. Um, just really allowing children to explore those areas. Um, then moves over to personality. So a lot of problem solving, always knowing how to problem solve, um, making decisions, and really those social skills and independence and confidence. I would add, but in order to kind of build upon those, we have to exercise them and be in those environments to allow us to have that on hands-on experience, which is very meaningful for them. The cognitive, so really understanding how we process information, how the child understands what we're saying. Are they more a visual learner, audio learner, um, just a hands-on learner? So it's all different, and that's what I mean about the flexibility. And then, of course, language. So really exercising the expression, using vocabulary, grammar, and just really understanding how to communicate their needs well, where they're understood, and also when they're spoken to, how they're, um, really, getting that information, and then getting a solution, for an example. So these are all, in general focal areas, but each classroom will have these areas, but maybe in different terms, and in different ways, and setup, and so forth. Some curriculum principles, and this is from the California framework. So the state of California really has, I would say, three different parts to their framework, and what they really focus on. And this is where I got this information from, to be specific. So they really want to empower relationships or central play as a primary context for learning. So they really want to make sure that we're incorporating play in our daily schedule and curriculum, and that learning is integrated. So, again, all throughout the day, children are learning. And how are we incorporating that? In ways we can incorporate that is really just always having that purpose of why we're doing certain things. So, when you're writing, say, the lesson plan off the curriculum, how are you integrating learning? How are you what's the purpose? What's the objectives? And really just kind of, so if you can't answer that question, then maybe we got to rethink maybe the lesson, and maybe dive into other areas. Have intentional teaching enhances children's learning and experience. So when you really spend time and you're a part of the process, and you're have intention when you're delivering the information, the children sense that. They definitely will feed off your energy, and you definitely have to enjoy it and have fun and express what you're asking of them as well. Um, Another areas in family and community partnerships create meaningful connections. So always having families in a part, I should say, of the environment. Having times of engagement outside the classroom is important. It doesn't necessarily always have to happen inside the classroom, but both are very meaningful as well. Um, so, for an example, at my school, I definitely would incorporate the in class by doing, um, parent nights and so forth. And then I would do sessions with just the parents, which would be parent education nights, which is a moment for us to kind of dive into what we're learning per classroom. And so they can have some better insight of what that looks like, and to ask their questions at that point. And then another would be outside the classroom, which would be events that we would participate in together, um, and or maybe have a big dinner outside of class, at a specific restaurant, or we had a spaghetti night once. We actually did it at the school, but outside, which was really fun. And everyone got to help and participate. Had some music on, and just had a moment just to more relaxed, outside the classroom kind of conversations, which was nice. And then, really applying that individual learning. which is something that the framework definitely includes, which I'm so happy with, because again, I can't say that enough. And then also just being mindful of the culture and language support children need. Um, if say that they speak a second language, or another language other than English is their primary language, just being mindful of having that support for them so they can be successful in the classroom. And then time for reflection and planning enhances teaching, very much so. So your time, teachers, that you give to reflect on the day, on the week, on a lesson, really helps fine tune those areas that need some support. And that's okay. We're not going to always do it perfect the first time. And perfection is something that we definitely shouldn't even strive to be, but yet, really just making sure that we're delivering the information, and supporting a child's development well individually is what we need to strive for. And when you spend time planning and making those changes, so many greatness can happen as children learn. Daily routines and curriculum planning. So just some, meaningful insight of how much the daily routines provide many opportunities for children to apply emerging skills, taking on responsibilities, and also just kind of, cooperating and just being a part of the process. So as much as the curriculum will have the different focal points of areas of development that maybe you want to focus on, it's definitely important to involve that daily routine, so children know what's happening, what's coming, and how they can be added into the routines and how they can support the team, really. Teachers engaging learning opportunities through everyday routines, as I just mentioned. So it could be at arrival, departures, meal time, nap time, hand washing, set up, clean up. It could be outdoors or indoors, and really getting them to be involved in those areas are really important for their sense of responsibility, confidence, sense of independence, really sense of just learning more about themselves and their abilities, and really just having them, show empathy and go through the process of helping others and how that feels. Um, and I definitely would encourage less. How do I say? Like when children do something amazing, sometimes they will get a sticker, for an example. Not to say that stickers aren't wonderful, they are great. But I guess my point on this conversation is really getting children to do things because that's part of the process, not necessarily doing something because you're getting something. And that's what I try to empower in classrooms and teachers, of really getting children to understand why this is happening, or why this is needed, or why their support is needed, and not really expecting that prize at the end, to be the purpose of why they're doing it, because I think that that could get a little confusing. And don't get me wrong, there are moments that we can definitely celebrate and have stickers. I'm not saying no stickers altogether. I'm just trying to get children to understand the needs of making sure that we are, just getting them to learn the process and why it's happening. And then lastly would be children build upon their independence, responsibility, and confidence. So really focusing on their social, emotional development through all of these points here. And then just being mindful here, I just have a little diagram of just understanding the cycle of intentional planning, because I really think that's a really important part of preparing the curriculum, lessons, lesson planning. And, it's important that teachers are observing children, and documenting their different learning developments as it's happening, maybe creating a tracking form or observation record form or however it is in your classroom. It's important to observe every day. So if you're in your classroom and you don't necessarily feel like you have that time, I definitely would sit down with your team and make that a priority. Secondly, just making sure that we are tracking assessment, but meaning not taking a test, but seeing if they're accomplishing the developmental aspects of their learning, and if they're not, then applying different ways of introducing that and getting them to where they need to be. That's what I mean by assessment. Um, and then also creating intentional lesson planning. So choosing activities, yes, from the curriculum, but also of interest of the classroom is important, and incorporating interests of maybe what children are coming to school and talking about, and just making it more yours, um, and really pertaining to the children or group of children you have is really important. And then implementing the intentional planned activities. So once the children feel connected, it's an activity that is something that supports the group. Um, I just feel like the children develop a different sense of connection with what they're learning, as well as the teachers. So definitely implementing intentional planning activities is really important. And lastly, I just want to say thank you so much. It's been really excited to learn with you. This is our part one. So next week we will doing part two. I'm sorry, no, this same week we will be doing part two of week one. Um, and I just really hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Um, and if you want to ask me at our live sessions, that's okay too. And then just a quick reminder to make sure we're accomplishing our 45-hour hands-on training. But again, that's through the course of this the whole entire course, not for this week, but just making sure that we are working on those hours weekly would be wonderful. And then just making sure reflections are due Sunday for extra credit, and that is after our live session. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out. Have a great day and week, and I will see you next time in part two of week one. Thank you so much. Bye bye.